Does it take you a long time to get a guitar tone like this? Or this? You need to start with the right overdrive. Hey guys, Joey here, and in today's video, I'm going to cover the different types of overdrive pedals that I like to use. A drive pedal before the amp is an excellent way to get started on the right tone. Swapping out the pedal can instantly change how the whole rig responds, and there's a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. Guitar pedals typically live in two places, before the amp or in the effects loop. Everybody's got their own preferences, but I like to use any kind of boost or saturation before the amp and put my delays, reverbs, and other modulation effects in the effects loop. This is because I like how the drives affect the preamp, but stuff like reverb will muddy the unamplified tone. It works better to my ears to save all the modulation effects until after the guitar is amplified. That way I get a cleaner tone. Since this video is only about overdrives, I'm only going to be messing with the signal before the amplifier. I've got it set up with Toneforge Jeff Loomis before the amplifier, and the input mode is stereo, and the amp settings are pretty dry. It sounds like this. I've got the cab set to default, and everything else is turned off. I've also got a few pedals in bypass before the amp. I'm going to turn each of them on to see how it changes the tone. The pedals are a classic 808 tube screamer, a super modded tube screamer, a clean boost, a fuzz, and a few software-only tools. Let's get started. The first overdrive we're going to try is a classic, based on the Ibanez Tube Screamer. This tone has been heard on rock albums for decades. The characteristics of a tube screamer is that it refocuses some of the low end into the mids, which makes the guitar come forward in the mix. It's a great tool for adding some clarity to an otherwise dull guitar. Toneforge Jeff Loomis comes with this pedal already built in, so I'm just going to switch it on. That's immediately got more bite and grit. The drive knob will bring a little more body into this tone. The tone knob adds some high-end emphasis. That's great for getting more pick attack, but be careful, on the wrong guitar, pushing it too far can start to sound thin and harsh. Awesome, that's a great start to a rock tone. Now let's try out the modded version. Toneforge Misha Mansour has a modeled precision drive from Horizon Devices, which is pretty much a super modern version of the Tube Screamer. It does the same tightening that the regular Tube Screamers do, but it's tuned for more modern high gain stuff. It allows you to control how much low end is hitting the front end of your amp. This means you can dial in the perfect setting for your tuning and taste. I've got everything bypassed except the pedal, so there's still nothing else before the amp. Let's turn it on and see how it compares. Right away, you can hear that this overdrive adds way more gain to the signal. It also has more breakup earlier on the drive knob, and the volume drives the amp a little harder. To avoid clipping, I've brought down the master output a bit. This particular overdrive has a really cool attack knob that controls where the transient emphasis is. When the knob is lower, there's a little more body, and a higher value means more pick attack. With the Tube Screamer style overdrives out of the way, now let's move on to fuzz. A fuzz distortion is basically an overdrive that uses harmonic overtones to change a sound. It's a lot grungier and messier than a regular distortion, and that means that it can sound really cool with the right application. For this example, I'm going to use JST Demon Fuzz, which is a separate version of the pedal from Bassforge Hellraiser with a ton more parameters and features. It may be designed for bass, but it works great for guitars too. Check it out. Fuzz tends to trade definition for body and vibe. It's got a really distinct sound that works best for slower parts that don't have a ton of quick notes that need to be defined. A clean boost does exactly what it says. It boosts the volume of the guitar signal before the amp without any special tone shaping. This is really popular for getting a guitar solo to cut, and for a more classic rock or blues rhythm tone. And how it changes the tone actually depends a lot on the amp, since it's basically just loading more guitar signal into the preamp. A Marshall Plexi is going to sound different than a Fender Twin, which will sound different than a dual rectifier. To show how it works, I'm just going to use the compressor pedal in Toneforge Jeff Loomis and boost the output. That's a great sound if you want something more natural from your overdrive. The tone still has all the characteristics of the amp, just with more gain. And if you have an amp that only has a master volume knob and no extra gain control, this might be a good way to get more out of it without changing the tone and frequency response. There are a few other ways that I like to drive an amp that don't use overdrive pedals, and that's with mixing plugins. Which brings me to the last section, software tools. The digital age has brought new flexibility to recording that I love to utilize. I'm going to load JST Clip to add saturation to the DI before it hits the amp. Check out how much it changes the tone. I'm totally overloading the preamp right now, and it sounds awesome, but I'm going to dial back the output volume so you can hear exactly what the plugin is doing. The volume is hitting the same levels as before going into the amp, but it's way more consistent now. There's a lot more body, and the clipping even brought in some more attack. This technique is a modern version of overdriving a preamp or console when recording direct guitars, and I think it sounds awesome when used correctly. The last thing I'm going to show you is how you can use a limiter to get completely clean boosts with no significant change to the DI. Even a compressor or boost pedal will still add a little bit of overdrive to your DI signal, but a limiter can add consistency and volume without affecting the dry tone. Check it out. That adds a ton of natural gain to the amp. If the amp is bypassed, you can hear how the guitar signal doesn't have any drive or breakup. Now that I've gone over a few of the basic types of overdrive, let's listen to how each one changed the sound of this amp. Those all have distinct sounds and make the amp react differently. Which of these overdriven tones did you like best? Is there an overdrive that you swear by that I didn't mention? Drop it in the comments below. I hope this video helped you get a better understanding of how different overdrives affect your guitar tones. I like to have a wide variety of choices when it comes to driving my amps, which is why I've included so many different overdrives in the various Toneforge models. It makes a huge difference when crafting a custom tone for each guitarist that you work with. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to check the links in the description below and tap that bell to get notified whenever we upload new videos. Until next time, happy mixing.